The evening had barely settled when Ryan returned home from a long day at the precinct, his uniform jacket draped over one arm, his badge glinting faintly under the porch light. He was used to handling tense situations, but nothing could have prepared him for the bizarre encounter about to unfold. His neighborhood had always carried whispers of drama, and the Homeowners Association had a reputation for being strict, but recently their actions had started feeling less like rules and more like intimidation. Ryan, who happened to be the town's chief of police, never thought he would be caught in their crosshairs. Yet that night, as his boots touched the driveway, he noticed a black SUV idling suspiciously near the curb. Please subscribe my channel and hit the bell icon for latest uploads inside. Silhouettes shifted, their faces obscured by the dim glow of the dashboard. He narrowed his eyes, instincts kicking in, but forced himself to stay calm. After all, his family was inside waiting for dinner. But before he could step through the door, two men jumped out of the SUV wearing uniforms that at first glance appeared official. "Sir, you're under arrest for non-compliance with community codes," one of them barked. Ryan froze for a split second, then studied them carefully. Their uniforms were mismatched, patches sewn awkwardly, and their badges lacked the shimmer of authenticity. Still, they played their part with confidence, each holding out what looked like an arrest warrant. The average neighbor might have panicked, but Ryan's years of training told him everything was off. Who were these men? Who sent them? And why now? The HOA had threatened him before over trivial issues: paint color, holiday decorations, even the length of his grass. But sending imposters in fake uniforms was a line he never imagined they'd cross. Yet here they were, trying to intimidate the one person in town who could see through their ruse. He raised an eyebrow and asked calmly, "Which department are you with?" The men exchanged quick glances, fumbling over their words. One muttered, "Community Enforcement Division." Ryan almost laughed. There was no such department. He leaned against his car, deliberately casual, and said, "Interesting, because as chief of police, I'm not aware of any division like that." The color drained from their faces. Still, they pressed forward, insisting he had broken HOA law by allowing a small shed to stand in his backyard without approval. They demanded he come with them immediately. Ryan's mind raced, but he knew better than to expose his badge too soon. He wanted to know just how deep this plan ran. Were these men merely neighbors desperate for power, or had the HOA board orchestrated the entire scheme? His gut told him the latter. He played along for a moment, asking for clarification, pretending to be rattled while discreetly clicking on his smartwatch to alert dispatch. Within minutes, his trusted officers would be on their way, but until then, he had to hold the line. "Gentlemen," he said slowly, "you've come to the wrong driveway tonight." Their confidence began to waver. The shorter man shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting toward the SUV, while the taller one tried to maintain authority by holding the fake warrant closer. But Ryan caught the trembling of his hands. These weren't professionals. They were pawns. The longer Ryan looked, the more he noticed. The faint smell of cologne covering nervous sweat, the poorly shined shoes, and the scripted tone of their voices. They were acting a part, and not very well. He thought back to the HOA president, a sharp-tongued woman who had been on his case for months. She had despised his independence and often muttered during meetings that no one is above the rules. Could she have gone this far? It seemed unthinkable, yet here was the evidence standing before him. Suddenly, the sound of sirens faintly echoed in the distance, growing closer with each passing second. The men stiffened, their act unraveling quickly. Ryan crossed his arms, finally letting a small smile slip. "You should know something," he said, his voice firm but calm. "I'm not just any homeowner here. I'm the chief of police." Their eyes widened in horror. The shorter man stammered, You're lying." But before Ryan could answer, 3 squad cars pulled up, lights flashing red and blue across the entire street. Neighbors peeked out from windows, murmurs rippling through the cul-de-sac as officers stepped out, weapons drawn but measured, demanding the imposters drop their fake gear. Within moments, the men were in cuffs, their SUV searched, and their fake documents confiscated. The neighbors who had always doubted the HOA's tactics now watched in stunned silence as the truth began unraveling. Ryan shook his head slowly, wondering how far the board thought they could push him. He had stayed silent about their petty harassment for too long, but this act had crossed into criminal territory. He approached the men as they sat on the curb, guarded by 2 officers. "Tell me who sent you," he demanded, his voice carrying the authority of years in command. At first they hesitated, but fear loosened their tongues. "It was the HOA president," the taller man admitted. "She told us you'd back down if we scared you enough. She said you were just another resident who thought he was untouchable." Ryan exhaled sharply. Confirmation. The president had orchestrated everything, and now the entire community would know. His officers took statements, documented every detail, and secured the scene. By now, nearly every neighbor had gathered, whispers buzzing louder than the cicadas in the night air. Ryan knew this was his moment not just to defend himself, but to expose the truth. He turned toward the crowd, his badge now shining proudly under the streetlights. "This isn't just about me," he said firmly. "This is about an organization that has crossed the line using fear and deception to control this community, and tonight, it stops." The neighbors erupted in nods and murmurs of agreement. Some even clapped softly, relief washing over them that someone finally stood up to the tyranny of the HOA board. For years they had endured fines, threats, and intimidation tactics, but no one dared to challenge them directly. Now, with the chief of police himself targeted and standing strong, the tide had turned. The following week, the story spread like wildfire. Local news stations covered it, headlines flashing. HOA president accused of orchestrating fake arrest. Investigations deepened, and more evidence surfaced. Emails, texts, even recorded meetings where the president boasted about handling residents her way. The board crumbled under scrutiny, members resigning one after another until the president herself faced charges for conspiracy and fraud. Through it all, Ryan remained calm, focused not on revenge but on rebuilding trust within the neighborhood. He worked with city officials to ensure no homeowner would ever again face the abuse of power they had endured. For the first time in years, neighbors felt free to plant flowers, decorate for holidays, and simply enjoy their homes without fear of a notice taped to their door. And Ryan? He didn't just restore order, he restored hope. In the end, the HOA's attempt to break him had backfired spectacularly. They had tried to send fake officers to intimidate him, but in doing so, they revealed their true nature to the entire community. Ryan's quiet strength, his refusal to bow to fear, had inspired everyone around him. And as he sat on his porch one evening weeks later, watching children laugh in driveways and neighbors chat freely, he knew the fight had been worth it. Justice had prevailed, not just because he wore a badge, but because he never allowed fear to silence him. The HOA had underestimated him. They thought he was just another resident. But they had forgotten one crucial truth. He was the chief of police, and no one could intimidate him in his own neighborhood.